I just jumped in.
This is Sam Shimon, guys. So.
Yeah, what's
Can
the
I say
concept
something?
of the penal code being perfect? What were you discussing?
Well, the brother was giving an example for, people, running away from certain hadith because they don't like it, and he cited, the penal code, and I would agree with him. Many people, many laymen do shy away from learning about the Islamic penal code because, in the West, it's seen as very foreign. But what I really wanted to respond to, the main point was, the reason why we don't accept the hadiths that you were showing on screen, like Sahih Bukhari, is because we literally think that it's like a completely different, like, hadith corpus,
Yeah, from the Shia, right?
Yeah, right. So it's not like we're running away from the hadiths because we don't like it. No, we literally don't have it. It has no value over us. The entire book.
Okay, now let me ask you,
yeah, go
You
ahead.
are wrong here.
because
You
I
know
need
that.
because I want to ask you a question about your. Give us the name of your most authoritative collection of hadiths. I know that unlike the Sunni, where they say Bukhari is flawless, I know that you don't have a view of your own collections that you think they're all flawless. But the most authoritative collection of narrations for the Shia, what is it called?
That would be Al-Kafi, Al-Sharif.
What year was it compiled?
It was compiled during the time of our 12th Imam.
Yeah, give us the date.
It would be somewhere in, I think, I know the Hijri date is 300 something, 300
Yeah,
400.
300
So
years after the Hijrah, right?
yeah, right.
So let's place the Hijrah around 622 AD, which is that's
Right.
the date. So
Right,
that means you just said, and everyone heard you. So your most authoritative collection of narrations comes from the 10th century, 900s.
Yeah. Well, what
And you don't have a
exactly?
problem with that? So now forget the fact I'm a Christian. Just say
Uh-huh.
I'm someone who's neutral and seeking to decide which religion should I base my trust in.
Okay.
And here you're telling me your understanding of this document called the Quran comes from a collection that's written 300 years after the supposed migration of Muhammad to Medina. But even that migration, the date is dependent on these sources that are centuries removed. So what sources do you have from the lifetime of your prophet that you can document is from his lifetime that I can look to and trust for its historicity? Because
Okay.
if that comes 2 years later, ain't going to help me.
I understand. I understand.
helps Salim.
I'll answer that. So the Prophet, he said that he left behind two weighty things.
How do you know he said that?
This is known as a mutawatir hadith. There are more than 100 chains.
Okay, friends, before I'm not trying to cut you off.
Yeah.
This mutawatir chain.
Yeah.
You just begged the question. You didn't answer my question. So let's cut to the chase. You're now quoting to me a source that comes 300 years later, where it's multiply attested 300 years later. What I'm asking you is, show me from the reported time of your prophet that he said this, not from a document or documents where you have multiple people coming centuries later telling you this is what they heard, the generation before them and the generation before them, generation. What evidence do you have from the 7th century your prophet said this?
Well, the hadiths that are narrated in Al-Kafi don't all they don't all go back to the prophet. They go back to the imams. The majority of the hadiths are from our imams, and the imams are direct descendants from the prophet. Everything they say, it's from. Prove what?
You keep begging the question. Prove to me that these imams are the descendants of Ali by first showing me that Ali existed in the 7th century and married Fatima, not from later sources, but from the first century Hijri. I'm still waiting for this. You keep begging the question.
Al-Kafi is a compilation of hadith. It's
when did it come again? When did it come?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter when it was released.
To you, it doesn't matter. To us, it does, because we're not Muslim. We don't share your assumptions.
I'm trying to explain
Prove the validity of your hadith collections that comes 300 years later, that we can trust them to tell us what took place 300 years earlier. So stop begging the question. I'm not a Muslim, so I don't share your assumptions. Prove it.
Okay.
I'm asking for historical data from the time when your prophet supposedly lived. In fact, how do you know he lived in the 7th century?
Okay, so like the brother Anamdar said, he said that the Al-Kafi was compiled during the time of the 12th Imam. That was during the presence of an infallible person to overlook it, right?
You believe that, right? I don't think.
Yeah, I believe that. I believe that.
Prove it. See, you keep going back to 300 years later, an Imam that you think is infallible.
Not 300 years later. It was in the same time of the publication.
It was during the time. It was during the time of the occultation. The Ghaiba.
How do you know what time the occultation was? What's your source for it? Where are you getting this?
It's a hadith from the Imams, from the deputies of the Imam, the 12th Imam.
This hadith that you're reading, when was it written?
During his time. During the time of the time? We already went over this in the beginning.
But your friend here said, no, it's not 300 years later, and I'm going with your dating. It is 300 years later. So this hadith is 300 years after the Hijrah, right?
You must understand, we're talking about the Imams. We're not talking about the Prophet.
Yeah, but these Imams, the only way you know about them is because of this document that you told me was written down 300 years after the Hijrah. So let's try this again. What source do you have from the 7th century telling me that Muhammad existed in the 7th century, migrated to Medina in 622 AD, and he had a son-in-law, Ali? Give me sources from that time period, not 300 years later. What source do you have?
I mean, we would tell you that we believe in. We would tell you that we believe in the Quran. We would tell you that we believe.
No. We want historical sources.
Okay.
Let's not all attack.
Excuse me. What's the question?
Well, if you're asking me what the question is, then you got to go back and rewind. I was talking to. Okay, now let's put the hadith aside. When we go to the Quran, do you believe what the Quran claims for itself? Because I'm going to show you some verses, and obviously you're going to say yes. If I in fact, let me even be more clear, because I know there are some Shia who think that the Quran they have today. Some, I'm not saying all of you believe this, but there are some Shia who actually think the Quran that you have today is not complete. Are you one of those Shias that believe that it's not complete?
No, everything is authority upon us. Every verse is an authority upon us.
I didn't say that's not what I asked you. Friends, let's answer the question that's being asked. I didn't say you reject any verse of the Quran. I said, do you think, as some Shia do, and you know there are Shia who think this, the Quran is incomplete? I didn't say that the Quran you have is not binding on you. Do you think it's incomplete?
Okay, if I can go first. Personally, I believe that the certain interpretations maybe can only be understood through our Imams. But I think what we have is, what we have. You may have minor changes in haraka, right? Like the fatha kasra dhamma, but it's complete in vocabulary, words, that sort of thing. But our understanding of it may be incomplete.
Okay, but do you then disagree, as there are some Shia who claim that there were actually statements in the Quran referring to Ali that have been removed? Do you think that there were statements about Ali in the Quran that we don't find today?
Yeah, I can give you an example.
Okay, hold on. Wait. Say it slowly. You're saying too fast. Yes, you do agree, because we want to hear you. Okay. Yes, you do agree there were statements about Ali in the Quran that have been removed?
Okay. Us Shias, we believe that the tafsir, the understanding of it, is still a part of the Quran in a way. So, us saying we believe in tahrif of Quran, distortion of the Quran, could also imply we believe that the commentary in the Quran was distorted. So, what I've actually understood from the scholar Alama Majlisi, when he said something was removed from Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam, such as the ayah or the verse that explains that he is the commander of the believers, was removed. I believe that he meant that.
Say that slowly. Young man, say that slowly, because you're saying it fast. Okay, you just said that there was an ayah in the Quran saying that
Yes.
Ali is the Imam that's removed. So that's a verse that's no longer.
No. You didn't let. You completely disregarded what I said towards the end.
No, actually, I just repeated what you said.
No.
You said
You repeated the middle of my
Here, just
statement.
repeat it. Just repeat it.
Okay, go ahead, finish it.
I said the ayah, Alama Majlisi, he states in his book, one of his books, that an ayah, and by ayah he means tafsir. There was clear tafsir, clear commentary on the Quran for a certain ayah that Imam Ali was supposed to be the caliph. But
What
this
ayah?
is tafsir. This is tafsir. It doesn't matter what the ayah is.
No, but hold on. You just confuse it. You
There's-
just
No, I
listen
didn't
to yourself
confuse it.
slowly.
I
Here,
I am listening.
You just said tafsir of an ayah, but then you said
Yes.
ayah. So now,
Yes,
is the
like-
tafsir the ayah, or is it the tafsir of the ayah? If it's the tafsir of the ayah, what ayah?
the tafsir can be part of the ayah.
Okay, which ayah? Where's
I
it in
don't,
the Quran,
I
the
don't
ayah
know.
you're
I'm
saying?
a late.
Okay.
I don't know. I just know that
Alright.
the,
Okay, that's
the
fine. I'm
tafsir
not
is
trying to
distorted.
bother you. Okay, that's fine. Okay, because I have read that there are some Shia that do admit there are verses that specifically mention Ali that have been removed, but that's okay. Let's put that aside.
No, we
Since
still have them.
you still have those verses
Yes, we do.
about Ali
Yes,
in the Quran,
yes.
Yes,
Show me.
there are many verses about Ali
Okay,
in the
show me.
Quran.
give me a couple.
Okay.
I'm not. You would like.
33, 33.
Okay, read 33, 33.
Okay, I'll read the second part of it, which goes along with what I'm saying.
Mhm.
Verily, Allah intends to keep away from you any impurities of sin, O people of the members, O members of the Prophet's family, and to purify you with thorough purification.
See, you just did the very thing I've been asking you to prove. Number one, there it says the Prophet, and it
Prophet's
says his
family.
Okay, and his family. I'm getting there. Apart from these hadiths, how do you know who this Prophet is, and how do you know who the members of his family are? Can you show me that from the Quran?
From the Quran?
Yes.
Not necessarily.
So now, if you're going to tell me that the family of your Prophet means Ali and Fatima and Hassan and Hussein, as opposed to the others, like the Sunnis would argue with you, and I don't care about who's right, that's your debate. What source do you have, and what date is this source that identifies who this Prophet is and who are the members of his family? Give me the date of the source that you're going to appeal to. When was it written? What date? That tells you who this Prophet was and who the members of his family are.
The oldest source for this?
Yeah, the earliest one you have. Give me the date of it.
Kitab Sulaim, and it's earlier than Sahih Bukhari. It came
What's
out
the year?
within the first century, 714 AD.
Give me the actual source that says it's dated to the 8th century. I'd like to see
Okay.
that.
So,
First
so let-
century, first century.
First century, that's Jesus's time. First century of what?
First century Hijra.
first century of the Islamic calendar.
So that's the 8th century. That's 700s.
Okay,
Give me the
yeah.
proof. Give me the proof that this manuscript that you have is from that time, not assertion. Give me the link. Let me see the document. Let me see the actual manuscript, the archaeological data confirming that date.
okay.
You want the
I need
actual.
proof. I'm not just going to take your word for it. Yeah, I can say anything.
So
but
what would be the requirements of the proof that you're asking?
that the manuscript you have has been dated conclusively to the 8th century, because you don't have any manuscript from the 8th century. You have manuscripts that are from the 10th, 11th, 12th centuries. But you just said you have it from the 8th century. Show it to me. I'd like to see it.
Could I just say one thing? I just want to ask. I haven't. Khadam Naki. We don't know who you are. Could you just introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm a Shia Muslim as well, and I'm a Pakistani.
Okay, good. Well, that's interesting. Pakistani Shia. Okay, I mean, well, yeah, there are Shias everywhere, but usually isn't Pakistani predominantly Sunni?
Yes, they are.
Okay, man. I know that when there's Sunni majority, and anyway, forget it. We have the same problem. Okay, coming back to the issue. What I'm trying to get at here is, here's the point, so you see where I'm going with this. When it comes to Bukhari and Muslim, you question their validity, because not only are they late, but they are compiled by Sunnis. And I'm trying to show you that if you're consistent, Bukhari is questionable because there's stuff in it that are not reliable. Even though the Sunnis say that Bukhari rigorously authenticated the hadiths, so they're completely reliable, you still reject that because one of the arguments you would use if you're consistent is, well, Bukhari's too late, meaning he comes over 200 years after reported death of Muhammad, for us to trust that everything he narrated is completely authentic. And we're saying exactly the same problem we have with your sources that are just as late, if not later. So why should we trust your sources that are just as late, if not later?
Okay. We also have another concept of hadith I actually wanted to tell you while we were speaking about Al-Kafi. A lot of our, some of our hadith, I don't know about a lot, but I know there is a hadith that are verbally transmitted, orally transmitted. For example, a man says, I heard from my father, who heard from his father, who heard from his father, who heard from his cousin.
We have those like names in that chain. That was
their names are in there in chains.
Where do you find their names?
Where do you find their names?
Yeah, how do you know X said to Y, who said to Z? Where did you get that?
Because it's all orally transmitted. For example, let's start off with the first chain transmitter. The first,
where do you
all the way
get
on the
that
top.
First chain? How do you know if it's oral? How do you know X? Well, you're not, because I want to know the list of names. Where did you find it? You mean it's floating in space somewhere?
No, so every hadith comes with a sanad.
Sanad, I know.
Yeah,
and that sanad is written where? That's what I'm trying to get him to say. It's written in that document again that comes 300 years later that you take for granted is authentic. See, you guys don't see. Okay.
No, so we have scholars that examine the names written there.
Examine, and the names are where? Where they examine? Where do they find these names?
They are also orally transmitted.
Okay. How do you know it's orally transmitted? Who told you?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
How do you know the Bible is how do you know the Bible is compiled correctly? How do you know it's not corrupted by Catholic Church?
Can I cut in a little? Can I cut in a little?
Unlike you guys, we have copies of the biblical books, the New Testament, that are from the start of the 2nd century, and we have the writings of the individuals themselves who were disciples of the apostles, not sources that come 300 to 400 years later.
How do you know they're not attributed?
Okay, it's all fraudulent. So now we're both agnostic. Don't change the subject. Don't change the subject. Now come back to you. See, nice trick. You're trying to change the subject. Come back to your issue. The oral transmitters, their names. How do you know who their names are? Where is it found? Where'd you find this?
Biographies.
Biographies that are oral or written?
Both.
Okay. So how do you know these oral biographies are actually ancient? Who told you?
Well, this would be mostly the job of Rijal experts. They would check the validity of men existing during the time period, during they would see how they, the period they lived in, their relation to the imam, right? Okay. How close they were to the imam. If the guy was never even mentioned at all, if the guy was never even known, we would say that the narrator is unknown, and thus we would call the hadith itself weak.
That's the same thing the same way the Sunnis classify hadiths. What I'm trying to get you to see is even this information. For example, let's make up some names. I'm just going to make up. Tony said he heard from Joey, who heard from Timmy, who heard from Samuel, who heard from Nathaniel. Okay, now that list that I just gave you, that list of names, where do you get that list of names? You get it in that document. That's what I'm trying to get at. Everything you're telling me about the transmitters is coming from a document that's written hundreds of years later. You're not giving me a document that's within the lifetime of Muhammad. Do you have such a document that's from the lifetime of Muhammad? If you don't, let's now talk about the Quran, because we're not going to accept your hadiths, just like you don't accept all of the Sunni hadiths. So let's at least focus on what the Quran says. Let's not bring outside sources, because at least you and the Sunnis agree regarding the Quran. So let's talk about the Quran. Because this hadith, the Sunni hadith, we don't accept Hussein because it's Bukhari. Well, we don't accept your Shia hadith because they're just as late. So let's go back to the Quran. Can we talk about the Quran?
Sure.
Okay, so now let's talk about the Quran. Go to chapter 9, verse 29, if Hussein wants to read it.
9:29. Okay, I'll
Yeah.
get it.
Quoting me your sources that are just as late doesn't prove anything for me. Just like if he quoted Bukhari, which he didn't prove anything for you, because Hussein comes out of a Sunni background, but he quotes Bukhari. Well, we don't accept Bukhari. Yeah, but it's rigorously authenticated. And he's got a sennad, and every person, the Rijal in that chain, was thiqqa. He was completely reliable. Oh, well, that's what Bukhari said. See, anyone can play that game. But now let's go to the Quran and discuss what the Quran says, its contents. Chapter 9, verse 29.
To be fair, we can back up our claims about why Bukhari is unreliable.
And then I can bring a Sunni Muslim who can tell you why.
And then we would talk to the Sunni Muslim. It's fine. We will talk to the Sunni Muslim about it.
Okay, well, we'll bring him on. I'll bring Shamsi on, and I'll bring Muhammad Hijab. If they want to come on, they can have a discussion with you. But let's go to chapter 9, verse 29, and read what it says.
Okay, you want me to read it?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, fight those who do not believe in Allah and the last day, nor comply with what Allah and his messenger have forbidden, nor embrace the religion of truth from among those who were given the scripture, until they pay the tax willingly, submitting fully, humbly.
Okay, now, according to this passage, why are the Muslims commanded to fight the people of the book? The verse itself. What does the verse say? The reason is
1 minute.
929. You just read it. Why are the Muslims commanded to fight the people of the book? What's the reason given in the verse?
Because they went against Allah and his messenger.
How do they go against Allah and his messenger? What does the verse say?
They didn't believe in them.
Thank you. I respect that. So why are they being fought? Because they rejected Allah and his messenger and did not forbid what he forbade, right?
Okay.
Do you agree? I mean, it's right there, the verse. I mean, you can read in Arabic for us. It's going to say the same thing.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
I agree with this verse.
Good. So you're agreeing in front of everyone that the Quran is telling you fight Jews and Christians solely because they don't believe in Muhammad and don't prohibit what Muhammad prohibited. So that means you should be fighting us if you have the military prowess to do so, proving what Hussein had said earlier.
No, we don't.
Okay, so this verse again. Let's go through the verse again. What are the reasons why Muslims are to fight the people of the book? The verse, without commentary, meaning Kunaini, Kafi, Bukhari. What does it say? Read it for us.
Because they don't believe in the Prophet.
Okay, I don't believe in your Prophet. So if you have the upper hand and you have enough military prowess and you have a bona fide leader, someone that you look to as the leader, an imam, whatever, ayatollah, whatever you want to call him, would he then order you, in light of this verse, to fight me, fight Hussein, fight Emmanuel, because we don't believe in Muhammad, we don't believe all of the Quran, we don't prohibit what he prohibited? Not because we attacked you. The verse doesn't say they attacked you. Nor does it say fight them because they attacked you. It doesn't say that. It says fight them because they don't believe like you. So would you then fight us? Because we don't want to believe in Islam. We don't want to believe in Muhammad. We don't want to believe in Allah.
So, a quick question: why are you universalizing this verse? Why should we not read the chapter in its entirety? Why are you universalizing?
And show me where it is particularized. Show it to me. Show me where this passage is particularized to a specific time and place. Where does it say that? It says, fight those who do not believe.
One.
So how's it
no, but this verse is part of a greater chapter, is it not?
Okay, read it. I'm saying you can read the first 28 verses, and it doesn't change the contextual meaning of 29, because I'm aware of what verses 1 to 28 say. But 29 is now speaking about fighting a different group from that mentioned previously, from verses 1 to 28. I'm very familiar with the context. So what in this verse makes it particular to a specific people at a specific time, when verses 30 to 31 actually show you the reason why you're fighting them is because of their beliefs? Because in 30, it goes on to say, And the Jews say Uzair is the son of Allah, and the Christians say that the Messiah is the son of Allah. And in this, they imitate the disbelievers of old. How perverse they are, may Allah fight them. So again, if I read 29, 30, and 31, where does it say in that context that the reason why the Muslims are to fight the Jews and Christians is because they've attacked Muslims, as opposed to attack the Jews and Christians for their belief? Read it for me, 29 and 31. Show it to them, Hussein.
Okay.
So you're at 29.
Mari ikut Yesus. Mari ke jalan yang benar. Tuhan berkati.